Next up for the Kevin Bond build, we're going to go ahead and check the height of the neck against what I had pre-routed before so I could see what I was doing. And I've got my straight rule clamped down with the bridge sort of set. And it looks like I can take the neck pocket down another 3/16 to get this set right. So we'll go ahead and build another bridge with some mounts and use a top bearing bit and just additionally route out what I had done before. So we'll get this all set up and reroute the neck pocket and the pickup routes. And so you can see I've got everything secured down. I'm checking the depth of the router and making sure I can do this. We'll just go ahead and route this out. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take a 1/2 inch Forstner bit and we're going to go ahead and drill out where the pickup rings are, where the pickup screw rings sort of dig in. So I need to just make sure that I've got the right depth for those pickup mounting screws that hold the actual pickup. You can see all the different clamps and mounts I have to get this secure so it doesn't move. Do the neck pocket as well. This looks nice and clean. And then for the single coil pickups, I'm going to hack and screw down the template with that screw and then clamp it on the back. Makes my life a little bit easier. So then we're going to do some black binding on this guitar, and we'll go ahead and use StewMac binding bits and StewMac binding. It's critical that you guys use the same binding material as the binding bits, or else it just takes so much longer to scrape and clean up. So I always buy the StewMac stuff for this because I know I've got the right size and it doesn't require as much cleanup and effort. So we'll do a route first, and then what we'll do is we'll draw a line here and get the right depth. And we'll go back and route one more time to get the right depth. And we're going to glue the binding on here next, once we're done routing. Alright, so we're going to bind the carved top telly. Things you need are some binding tape from StewMac. Nothing works as good as this stuff. I've used a lot of stuff. What I'm going to do is cut off a bunch of pieces, put them on my edge of my table here. And I'm going to start by binding the bottom and work my way around the top. It's a little bit easier to do that. That way you've got the binding set. I've also got some medium body solvent from IPS. I found this on Amazon. You need some toothpicks because this stuff gets a little runny at times and hardens. So what I'm going to do is start at the bottom here, do the easy part first because then the binding's not going to move. And I figure out how much I need. Start on the bottom here and work my way around. So we're just going to get a little bit of glue. We'll work this into the body, if you can see that. Take my binding, place it on, tape it. Please make sure you push down and push in so that you're flush. We'll just go around the corner here. See how this hardens pretty quick? Got that one side down. I'll drop a little bit in here. If you're doing an open grain wood, be careful so that you don't get too much in the grain, because you will be sanding it out later. Push down, tape over. Push down, tape over. So we'll just let this dry, come back every couple hours and finish this off. It's pretty simple, it just takes a little bit of time. So then we'll follow the same process on the sides as well. We'll take a glue, run it down, smooth it out with the toothpick. You don't want too much that it squeezes out, but then you also don't want to starve it, so it's a little bit of a guessing game. I like to make sure just the bottom is coated versus really putting on thick. The more glue you put on, the more you're going to have to clean up. So a little bit of practice, you'll get it right. Alright, so for the horns, I've got my Harbor Freight heat gun, and what I'm going to do before I actually glue this is heat this stuff up and get it formed, and then come back tomorrow and glue it up. That way I've got a much better bend and I'm not forcing anything. So what I'm going to do is turn this on. We're just going to slowly heat this up. Adjust the tape. And you'll know when this is hot enough when this starts to sort of reform right about now. I'm recycling my tape from before. And now that piece is reformed. Cut off what we don't need. I'll do the same thing on this side. So when you heat up the binding, you want to keep the heat gun moving. You don't want to keep it too long on one spot, or else you'll melt that one spot. So you go back and forth, heat up the binding. You can sort of see it starts to get a little bit playy, plasticky versus hard. You'll feel it as you do it. So what I'll do is I'll just grab the end, turn the corner, and then tape it. It's nice to have that tape lined up, because now as I turn the corner, I still got a little bit of play as it goes to the neck route. And you can see it sag here, right about there. Right there, it moves, and at that point you can tell it's done, ready to just tape on. And by pre-taping, it just makes life so much easier as you go to glue it later. It's already formed. You just tear off the tape, binding doesn't move, and you can glue it relatively quickly. So we'll just apply the glue same way. You can see the binding doesn't move. No fuss. Trying to do the binding, glue, tape, heat all at the same time is too much. two-step process makes it so much easier.
So next up we're going to scrape. I've got a scraper and I did this at the right angle where all I have to do is really scrape it. I've only got maybe less than a 1/16 I need to scrape off. And you just take the scraper and clean up the edge. Try not to scratch the top like I just did. But this is why I didn't final sand until I did this.
Much less risk of scratching my top.
What I like to do is put a little bit of a flex on this so I got more of an edge.
So all in here, getting the top piece done, I've probably got about 20 minutes. Once you get your scraper sharp, you can go pretty quickly. You just move the body around. And then here I cut the extra binding with a Japanese flat saw. And here I actually use a sharp chisel and just get it flush.
So for doing the binding on the side, same process. I've got a scraper and I'm going to flex this out just slightly. Just clean up the edges.
So we'll continue to scrape the binding, going around, turning the body in the clamp. See, I've got the towel there so it doesn't leave any indentations on the body. And again, I probably have maybe another 20 minutes in on this. And here I use the curve scraper to just clean up a couple spots specifically. So then in the back and forth process with Kevin, he wanted a tummy cutout. And I've got a Strat template that's got this set up, sort of line it up right, draw it out. And in one of my other videos, I have this jig that helps me cut this out on my Laguna bandsaw. So it's on the right, I think it's 17 degrees. I can't remember exactly what that degree is, but I clamp it up, no touch. Bandsaw height is pretty high, so this is a safe way of doing this without holding it up. I've got it clamped on. And then we're going to go ahead and center the output jack. And I've got a center and then a 7/8 bit, and we'll drill that out. Then we've got a lot of sanding to do. And so I've probably got about 20 minutes in sanding here between these next two videos. And I still have to sand even after some of this last bit of work. But I start with 320, sand with one grit like 180, and then go over the edges with 180, go to 240, go over the edges with 240, and then move up to 320, which is what this is here. So then next in the back and forth process of building a guitar, we were really unsure of how we wanted to do the controls. I thought we would do more of a telly, standard telly route, and he wanted more of a Paul Reed Smith style. I don't have the right routing for the PRS style, but I think I can sort of manage and get that first control knob down closer. So I've got a 3/8 bit, we'll drill that first one out, see how it looks, and then sort of put the slide switch in. I was hoping we could do a 5-way rotary switch, but he wanted a slide switch. So what I did is laid this out, and then I took a 16th inch bit and drilled out where the screws were, and then drilled out where the slide piece is. And then I've got a chisel that's exactly the size of the slide. So we'll go ahead and take a pick guard and sort of manage this out. Again, measure twice, cut once. This is a really, really critical process. And I've got a mallet and my chisel, and we're just going to slowly do this. This is probably one of the most difficult things I did on the guitar body, to be quite honest. It requires a significant amount of precision to look right. And if you go too fast, you will either pop through the top, or you will chisel it wrong and you'll damage that slot. So I've done this a couple of times before. It just requires a lot of patience and time. And I've got a bunch of different small chisels that help me clean this out. And I start on the top and get it down about a little bit of it, more than a 16th, clean it up, and then just continue to go back and forth and get it clean. That way the slot is nice and clean, and you need the slot to be clean, else it doesn't look right. So then I didn't film this. I took pictures because I needed to flip this over and route at a angle, same angle as the top. So I get the angle of the top here, which is about 6 degrees, exactly where I want to put that. And then I found a template that I've used before that's got a slot, and as I was measuring, it was about 5 degrees. Put another wedge in there, and I'm perfect at 6 degrees. Run a couple test passes, check the depth with a pair of pliers and the 16th bit. So I'll feel it from the bottom, see what depth I'm at, and continue to go back and forth very slowly. So I got it set up right, and then I take that same 16th bit, drill it out a little bit more, and then I take a jigsaw blade, cut it, grab my file, and start filing it out to clean it up. And then I've got a larger jigsaw blade, and with a piece of sandpaper, and just clean it up. You can see it's a back and forth process, and to be honest, I think this took me about an hour and a half. So I get it drilled, make sure it's set up right, clean it up, make sure everything looks right. And I went really slow and methodically with this. This is not a fast process. PRS has a CNC machine, and they can do this in a matter of minutes at the right angle. I don't have the skill set yet on my CNC to do this right, so I did it by hand. I'm going to recess the top screws so it fits right, and we'll test it and make sure it does sit right. We'll slide it a couple times. The bottom piece needs to be sanded just a little bit more. It's a little tight. So then the body is pretty much essentially done at this point. A little bit more sanding to clean it up, but we'll go ahead and start working on the neck next. I've got that video in process. So thanks for watching, guys. We will see you in the next vid.